The business of medicine is constantly changing. The review by Resolve discusses current contract issues for physicians, compensation trends, and tips for a successful career. Every physician's contract and career is different, and nothing in this episode should be considered legal advice. If you have specific questions about your career, please consult with an attorney. Now, on to the show.
Okay, welcome back to the review. I am here today with Angela Lopez. Angela Lopez is a colleague of mine. We've worked together for a long time. Angela, do you want to start out and just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and your practice?
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me in your program. My name is Angela Lopez, as Kyle said. I have been practicing immigration for over 23 years now, exclusively employment business, but mainly physicians and healthcare workers.
Yeah, and we work with a lot of physicians, so we love having good help on immigration topics and issues. So we're going to talk today about J-1 visas and J-1 waivers and how that interplays with the employment contracts that we see. And so I want to start out and just zoom out. For the folks that are watching this, tell us about the J-1 visa program, how it's used, who utilizes it, things like that.
Okay, a J-1 visa is done through the Department of State, the United States Department of State, and is a state exchange visitor program that allows foreign people, and in this case, we're talking physicians, international medical graduates, to come to the United States to train, whether it's a fellowship or a residency in the different organizations or programs.
Okay. So these are international medical grads, right? Did medical school outside of the U.S. They're coming here for residency or fellowship, and they have a visa to do that. And then there's this 2-year home rule requirement. Tell us about that component.
Exactly. So the thing with the J-1 visas is that they come with a requirement that, and we're talking physicians. J-1 are not only restricted to physicians, but today we're talking physicians. So the requirement is that when a physician comes to the United States on a J-1 visa, they are obligated to go back home, return home for 2 years in his home country or last place of residence for 2 years after they complete the training program. And it's an obligation that for all J-1 physicians, and I mention this, because sometimes I get questions, am I subject to the 2 years? If you are sponsored by the ECFMG, and pretty much every physician who comes to do a J-1 training in the United States, they are sponsored by the ECFMG, then they're subject to the 2 years. There's no way around that one.
Okay. So their choices are either you've got to go back to your home country, right, wherever that is, or you have to try to get a waiver, right, of that requirement. And so,
exactly.
And we have a lot of clients that want to, stay and practice, and that was the goal the whole time, I think. And so, tell us about the waiver process. What are the options there?
Yeah. So there are 3 types of J-1 waivers. One is the interest government agency. Okay. And that is a state or federal agencies. And under that one, you have the famous Conrad 30, Department of Veterans Affairs, the Department of Health and Human Services, ARC, DAR, a couple of options. Okay. Then you also have the exceptional hardship and the persecution waivers. Those are 2 different waivers that are also available to physicians who might want to explore those options.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's talk today about the IGAs, the interested governmental agencies. I think I'm saying that right.
The IGA.
Yeah, the IGAs. Okay. And you mentioned Conrad 30. So let's talk to us about that program.
Correct. So the IGA, Conrad 30 is for many years, it was kind of the only option out there. And the program is named after the senator who proposed the law, Senator Conrad. Sure. And allows every state in the United States and the District of Columbia to sponsor 30 J-1 waivers per fiscal year. For federal purposes, fiscal year starts on October 1st. So from October 1st to September 30th, every year, every state and the District of Columbia, they have 30 J-1 waivers that they can give out to the applicants, to physicians who apply for those waivers.
So is that, I mean, 30 doesn't seem like enough. Obviously, I think there's more J1s than 30 per state. Is that the best program? Is it your favorite program? I mean, tell us about the differences.
It might be the only option rather than the best program, and I would say is probably the first. In some cases, it might be the only option.
Sure.
Okay. But there are many other waiver programs, a couple of them that I really like. For example, the DHHS, or the Department of Human Services. That one is exclusively for primary care physicians.
Okay.
So if you are primary care physicians, and the Department of State defines primary care as internal medicine, family medicine, psychiatry, general psychiatry, because if you're specializing like in child psychiatry, or then you don't qualify for an HHS waiver.
Okay.
That is great for physicians' primary care. Has no limit on the number of waivers it can grant on a yearly basis, and it has no deadlines. So, and it's pretty friendly in terms of the people that runs this program. They're very responsive, and they process these waivers rather quickly.
Okay, good.
Then there are a couple other programs that have been created in the last 3 to 4 years. One of them is the SCRC, which is the Southeast Crescent Regional Commission, and that's the one that is southeast, covers the entire state of Florida and a couple of the other states up above. For people who love Florida, that's your waiver, because it sponsors primary care, specialty, anywhere in Florida, as long as the work location is in an underserved area. And we can talk about the waiver requirements.
Sure.
In a little. Mm-hmm.
Great. So it sounds like there's a handful of options, right? And it's going to be different on location where you want to be and what your specialty is. Are there common misconceptions that you hear from clients on J1 waivers? Like they thought it was, maybe one rule and it's actually not that. What are some of those things?
Yes, some of the misconceptions, or one of the biggest one, is that the J1 waiver is almost impossible to obtain. It's so difficult, and I'm not going to minimize the process. It's complex. It has many regulations. You need to be familiar with what you're doing, how you're doing it, what are your choices, but it's obtainable. I think physicians today more than ever have many options, and if your goal is to stay in the United States, you will be able to get a waiver through any of the many available programs that there are. Another misconception is that they can wait as long as they need to the last date of training to start looking for who's going to sponsor my waiver. The J1 waiver is a process that takes somewhere between 4 to 6 months to be completed. But before you get to the process, you have to find an employer that is in a location that is waiver approvable and all these things. So do not wait to your last date of residency, because probably you might run out of time to complete your waiver and have to leave the United States. The other misconception is that if you start your J1 waiver and you were not able to complete it before you completed your residency or fellowship, and you have to leave the United States, then you cannot come back for 2 years. No, you can come back as soon as the waiver is approved. You'll have to wait for the waiver to be approved and obtain an H-1B. Because the other thing is, some people believe that the J-1 waiver is work authorization. No, it is a two-step process. First, you get your waiver, and that allows you to stay in the United States to work. You have to obtain an H-1B visa, and that's the second part of the process. So the waiver alone will not give you work authorization, but the H-1B will not happen unless you get the waiver.
So that seems like maybe one of the biggest takeaways then is start early. It sounds like it's complex. There's a lot of different options, a lot of different pathways you can go down. How do you recommend physicians get legal help or guidance or education on this? Like, what's your kind of closing remarks on that?
Well, as soon as possible, talk to an immigration attorney that works with physicians, because physicians is a very specific area, and most immigration attorneys don't understand physicians' immigration, never mind waivers. So yes, as soon as possible, talk to a physician immigration attorney, understand the process, understand your options so that you can strategize how you're going to go about getting a waiver after you complete either your residency or your fellowship, and what your options might be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's similar to what we do. I mean, there's healthcare employment, but then there's healthcare employment contracts for physicians specifically, right? I mean, it's all the physicians specialize, so do attorneys in immigration and other categories. So I completely agree with that. Find an immigration attorney like Angela that does this all day, every day. I think that's super important. So I've got about 1,000 more questions. So we're gonna have you back on another episode to have you talk through some of this stuff, but I appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Kai. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye.